Okay, so we're gonna go ahead and get started here. First, we're gonna start with our introductions. So we'll first introduce ourselves, and then we'll go ahead and have you guys introduce yourselves. My name's Kabe Boyson. I'm currently serving as your Southeast State Vice President. I hail from the Wapello FFA chapter. I am currently a sophomore at Iowa State University. And I'd say my favorite FFA memory is probably going to the National Finals Rodeo in Las Vegas with my chapter and going throughout that.
All right. Well, my name is Carson Brinks. I'm currently serving as the Northeast State Vice President. And I'm currently a freshman at Kirkwood Community College for a degree in auto tech. And my favorite FFA memory would have to be state convention my sophomore year. Just had a great group of people that I went with and had an amazing experience.
And my name is Blake Vanderkamp, and I'm currently serving as your Iowa FFA state reporter. I'm also at Iowa State this year, and I'm a freshman majoring in agriculture education. And with that, we are excited to be hosting our fourth Helpful Hour, I believe it is now. And we are going to be talking about Proficiency Awards, Iowa degrees, and STAR applications tonight.
So we're going to go ahead and kind of go down the line of people that we see in here. If we could have you turn your camera on and unmute yourself while you do your introductions, that'd be great. We'll start with Gina. Is that pronounced right?
Yes, I'm in the car, and me and my son Joseph are from Garner, and we are watching.
Sounds good. Thank you. Next, we will have Morgan.
Hi, I'm Morgan McKay from the Knoxville FFA chapter, and my favorite FFA memory so far has been district convention my freshman year.
Awesome. Thank you. Next, we'll have Rachel.
Oops. Hi, my name's Rachel. I'm from the Bonneret for our FFA chapter. I'm a senior this year, and my favorite FFA memory is probably traveling to National Convention last year.
Yeah, definitely. That's a lot of fun. Thank you for sharing. Trey.
My name's Trey Voller. I'm from the Diameter FFA chapter. I'm currently a sophomore. And my favorite FFA memory would also be going to the National Convention last year.
Awesome. Thank you. And as we have people jump on here, we'll go ahead and have them share their name and year in school if we have anybody else jump on. But we'll go ahead and dive in into the overview. So Blake, you can kind of talk about this.
Yep. So our first thing we're going to talk about today is Proficiency Awards, which I know that there was a few of you that mentioned being sophomores this year, which is an FFA opportunity that's offered to you guys this year, all the way through your freshman year of college. And with that, we will actually take a look right into what the application is. And just to give a little bit of an overview about this, a Proficiency Award is I guess essentially an award that you can apply for through your supervised agricultural experience. And one cool part about this is you can apply at the state level and then eventually go to the national level. I know that Kabe Boyson and also Carson Brinks have had a lot of success with this. And there's a lot of different areas. I believe there's up to 49 different ones. So no matter what your SAE is, there's definitely an area that applies to you. Kabe, do you want to pull up the application for us?
Yeah, definitely. I guess we'll go ahead and give a little background like on our SAE and things that we do, just so you guys kind of have an idea as if we talk about things here and there. So Carson, you can kind of start and then we can go down the line.
Yep. So I had two different SAE areas that I applied for proficiency applications in. The first one that I applied for was grain production placement, and that had some fairly decent success for me. It worked out well. I went to state and got first in the state with that. was very happy with that. Spent a lot of time and hours putting in my records. But then the second proficiency application that I did was my fruit production SAE. That turned out pretty well as well.
Yeah, so my SAE that I kind of branched off, or I guess was my main SAE. I had a couple others, but my main one was swine production entrepreneurship. So I applied for proficiencies twice, and then I was a star finalist also. So yeah, it would have been 2 years ago.
And then for me, I have my Iowa degree as being a state officer, but for Proficiency Awards, I've applied since my sophomore year. I've applied in the areas of ag education, ag communications, and then food service. And those relied on my chapter website chapter website SAE and my food service SAE as well.
Awesome. So we're gonna pull up maybe if I can figure this out here. We're gonna pull up the AET. Share there. What am I doing wrong here, Blake? We'll do this.
That might be easier.
Okay. So I guess do you want to talk about this, Carson,
Proficiencies?
or the AET, or
I can talk about it a
Okay.
little bit. So I know some of you guys might use dollars and hours, which is a Google sheet which you'd use for your record books. You might also have your own at-home version. I know some chapters like to do that. Personally, at Diamond Trail, we use the AET, which is one way we like to access our records. So the section you can see on the screen right where the clicker is the degree and application manager. And when you click that, you can start any application, whether it be your proficiency award, your Iowa degree, your state star application. So kind of going back again to the proficiency award, we'll create a new one to look at that really quick.
gotta move this over. I'm on the wrong thing, aren't I?
Mm-hmm.
Oh, is that what you wanted, or what do you want?
Nope, go back there.
This one?
Nope, do green application manager. And then slide down. And then first, yeah, application at the bottom. Then you can click on that. So this is the initial screen that comes up when we pull up Proficiency Award. So the 49 areas we talked about will be listed on that left side. So at first, the application doesn't look like it's that much, but the first kind of step is actually identifying what type of application you'll be filling out. So with your record books, you can either have an entrepreneurship or placement, which is really the big, I guess there's also agri-science, but normally the placement and entrepreneurship are the two big things that determine what your Proficiency Award application will look like. So Kabe will just have randomly click on one for us quick. And as you can see, there's just hundreds of applications that you can, or different types of areas you can apply for. And this first little area that's loaded up for us is a basic setup. And on here, it has a lot of information from your records. So if you're a chapter that we talked about earlier that has a paper resource that you use or a Google Sheet or something like that to keep all of your records, all of your information will have to be manually inputted into this web page. But if you are one that uses the AET, it should automatically load for you, which it looks like some of the stuff from this application already did. And then you can also click onto what area your record book falls under. For example, if you're applying for an agribusiness, we'd click on that. And then we can also determine if it's an entrepreneurship or a placement type. And
I guess this is kind of something, we might go back to one of your applications from last year, because it's kind of hard to understand some of that. You have to like actually go in And like, so this is like your income and expense. So I know what like our chapter does is we have like a Google sheet and then we enter it into this. So we double do it. It's a lot of work for a lot of nothing. I would rather so I guess if you do get into questions or things like that, feel free to reach out and talk to any of the three of us or your advisors as well. Do you think we should go back and look at one of
Yep, I think that's fine.
Carson's?
True production is most recent.
Which one?
True production.
Okay.
And Morgan, I saw your comment in the chat. You said, where can you get those applications if you use dollars and hours? And we will come back and show that later when we come back to I would agrees as well as Proficiency Awards at the end. But there's actually a spot on National FFA's website where they have a location where you can access all the applications as well. And your advisor should have access to that for you as well.
Yeah, so this is an example of Carson's fruit production that he's just most recently done. So this is, we're gonna look at like the, you don't have it. Is this a placement one?
Yep.
Okay, so this is a placement one. So he's not gonna have the dollars and hours on this one. So I guess where we're gonna start is we're gonna look at like the performance review. So basically, all of these are questions that you fill out. So performance A, so there's briefly explaining your SAE and it's how it's related to this area. Explain the roles, responsibilities, and management decisions related to this award. And I'm not going to go and read all those because you'll get bored of me all night if I do that. But you kind of get the gist of that. We'll just kind of go through these. And then it's just basically explaining your three accomplishments, your greatest accomplishments, identifying three experiences that you got in that SAE. So it's really pretty simple on that aspect of things. It's just pretty time consuming. So this is just showing like his unpaid hours. You have to meet a certain minimum requirement. I'm not sure exactly. I guess I don't know a whole lot about the placement.
So with placement, there isn't actually a minimum requirement.
Oh.
It's more of, and it doesn't necessarily, you don't have to have a bunch of hours. It's how you have your application put together. It's just the most important thing with placement is making sure that you have records of your hours put in. And whether or not that is you put it in every day, or what I did was every month, I put in my hours for that month. And a lot of it really relies on, do you have your records up to date? Do you have an entry for every month? And have you spent the time to actually fill out your performance reviews and to kind of get the information in there is a lot of what it is. If you go ahead and you use the space that you're given, I mean, you saw what I had there. I didn't have it completely filled out. I didn't use every little thing, but I had good chunks of stuff written down there, and that's what's important. Making sure that you have some type of information down is a big part of that.
Mm-hmm. Definitely. So I'm just kind of looking into something here. Okay, I'm back on that. All right, so we've kind of went through that. I wish I can't get my my AET to pull up because I would also show you a different version of entrepreneurship as well. But then you have your outcome and efficiencies. So that's basically just describing how this factor or outcome impacted the management decision. So you just kind of whatever you best think fits that. Your skills, competencies, knowledge within your primary pathway. I guess I don't know, Carson. This is I'm not real familiar with placement.
All right. So with placement, you're expected to have your 5 skills and competencies. So if you go ahead and Kabe, if you click on one of these skills, you're given a list. Now in the front of that, you can see it says FPP like 0.1 or FPP. So that is fruit production placement. So you can go through the, like, if you look through the list, it has different skill areas that you could apply to. Like, for example, in the first one, I did apply food safety and sanitation procedures. And then over on the side, I talked about how through my SAE, I learned about the correct way to, make sure that the food's clean and to make sure that it doesn't get contaminated by any means. So like that's the first one. And the second one, I talked about implement selection, evaluation, and inspecting techniques. So I talked about how to go ahead and check the fruit. So that your first top 5 ones are usually going to be based off of the proficiency area that you're in. So if you look at my top 5, they all have that FPP. So they're all fruit production placement.
And Carson, I'd actually like to correct you on that briefly.
Yep.
These actually aren't going to be specific to your SAE, but it's actually based off the AF&R career clusters. So you guys might be familiar with agribusiness systems. Another one is cluster skills, plant systems, animal systems, basically what your typical ag classes would be. And for example, FPP stands for food products and processing, which falls under, fruit production would fall under that area. So it's a lot broader categories, but then it would fit whatever topic you're talking about.
I learned something new today. I thought that was fruit production. And then if you would go ahead and look into the bottom 5. So the top 5, like Blake talked about, are all related, like they're directly in the category that talks about fruit production, whereas the bottom 5 are from different case categories. So these are, like it says, that your 5 supporting skills. So I'll just look at the second one, number 7, I have written down there, is speak using strategies that ensure clarity logic. So I talked about how through my SAE, I had to learn about how to communicate with people because it was a part of my fruit production. So these are a little bit more broad, so you have a little bit more flexibility with them. It doesn't force you to have all 10 in there, but if you really want to do good with your proficiency, I recommend filling out as much as you can. So I made sure that I always had all 10 having something filled out.
Mm-hmm. Okay, so we'll kind of keep rolling through this. I know it's kind of boring. And like I said, if you don't need this, it's definitely really boring. If you do, it's helpful. But like I said, you can always come back and ask us questions about this. I know all 3 of us, I think, use AET. So we do have kind of a general understanding. So this is basically like your resume, pretty self-explanatory. Take things from your resume and then put them right on there. Photos, these are obviously, you can see Carson here working hard on his fruit production. This is just photos with explanations behind it. Basically, they know that it's real. Supplemental information, that's just like an extra page that you can put on there. I believe it's only 1 page. Yep. Oh, yep, it says right there, 1 page. Wow, read, Kabe. And then the checklist. So that's just making sure that you have all your stuff done before you bring it to review night or something like that. You can see we have an error here, but that's just because the date is off. So that's really nothing there. So is there any questions that we can answer? I know Blake and Carson know more about the placement. I know a little more about the entrepreneurship. Sorry to bore you guys on that a little bit, but we'll go back to the slideshow here. I see we have that's just.
And while Kate's loading that back up, just one last thing to kind of sum up what the Proficiency Award is, because I know it was a lot to kind of process at once. So I would say a really easy way to process it is just, if you've ever written an essay for a class, it's just a lot of different paragraphs kind of describing your SAE. And each little one is just a little bit different. So sometimes you could be talking about one aspect and another time you could be talking about another. One thing that I use personally is Grammarly, because the one thing that they really like to check you on Proficiency Awards is spelling, along with any application that you do in FFA as well.
Well, obviously I don't know how to run Zoom. I'm trying to push resume share, but does not want to work for me. There we go. Okay.
Perfect.
So we're gonna go and go ahead and talk about where you can find this information. So I clicked onto that link there. So right on the Iowa FFA's page, you can go ahead and see that we have actually a new website coming out, but Blake will go ahead and explain exactly where and how to find it on this website.
So if you want to go to find more information about Proficiency Awards, you can go over to our awards section, which is right on the top bar. And then it'll slide down and you can go to Proficiency Awards. And then at the bottom, you can also see Stars Over Iowa, which we'll hopefully have time to talk about later. And then under SEE section, I believe, if you go one more over on the next bar, is your Iowa degree as well. And each one of those pages will have a little bit more specific information, some documents your advisor might use to look over it and revise to make sure it's ready to actually send out to the state level or even the national level as well.
Yep. So we can click into these. We'll click into Proficiency Award just so you can see the extra little things. So this already has the 2021 stuff on there. So feel free to get on there and look at that. Hopefully the new website's launching on the 12th. We're hoping it's done.
Yep.
So basically the same thing. It'll have those same deals. You can click on awards and find your proficiency, rising star, and SAE also.
One great resource I'd like to point out before we switch pages is that the events resources section, you can see some helpful links. One says the 2020, 2021 Proficiency Award area descriptions. And when we talked about those 47 different areas, I know that it's really hard to find out which one applies to you. So you can actually look through this and it will give a little bit of a blurb about it should be an entrepreneurship versus a placement or even an agri-science area. And then also what each of those 47 different categories entails.
Mm-hmm. Are we good on this? And anybody have any questions over where to find this stuff at? If you do, feel free to speak up. We don't be shy. We're not that mean. Okay. So we'll go on to the next one. So applications, I guess we kind of went over that a little bit.
We can just show them an Iowa degree application if we want to.
Okay.
On the AET.
Oh, maybe. I just. Okay. Okay, so back on here, we'll go ahead and find the. You want to just look at yours?
Look at that.
Okay. We'll just look at Carson's then. That'll work. That'll give you guys a little better idea over that. So it does when you want to talk about this.
Sure, I can talk about my Iowa degree. So on this first page, your cover page, it's fairly straightforward. It has, you'll be putting in your name, your address, and then parent to guardian. So that's fairly straightforward on this one. So with your basic setup, you have your beginning dates, and you always need to make sure that your ending date. So if you're filling out your Iowa degree now, you want to make sure that the ending date is 12/31 of 2020 because it can't go into this year. Otherwise, that voids the application. As we can see in the second area there, the SAE types, I have placement because those are the types of SAEs that I had. Looking at assets, I suppose that's something we should probably look at some point in time. When you put in your hours and your invested money, that's a different part of the AET area. Or if you're using the other form of the application, you have to put that in manually. But the AET, when you put it in to your records, it'll upload it automatically up into these different sections here. Would you like to scroll down a little more? I don't have much for assets or liabilities. Being a placement SAE person, Kabe with his entrepreneurship would probably have a little bit more in that because there's a little bit more money being exchanged. He has more invested into it and maybe a little profit, hopefully.
Hopefully. I'm trying to get my login information. For some reason, it's not letting me on. So if we can get that pulled up, we can come back to that and show you guys maybe what like an entrepreneurship one. Do any of you guys have like an entrepreneurship SAE? So we should be good then. If I can't get that, do you guys have placement or? Yeah. Okay.
Placement power.
Awesome. Have you guys got your Iowa degree, I guess? No? Perfect. Well, this will help you out then a little bit.
So looking at the project store, if you have a proficiency application done, this looks a little similar to my beginning page of my proficiency application. For the most part, it's actually fairly similar for the first one, at least. I'm talking about how I got started with my SAE project, a little bit of history about myself, some pretty straightforward stuff there. Now, if we look in like the section B, once again, pretty straightforward. Just explain how this is, your SAE is important, why, and I mean, it's pretty, you just talk about how your proficiency works with agriculture and make sure it's important to the economy. And then it just talks about the planned SAE in the bottom of that. So here, once again, it shows my records. This is very similar to what we saw in the proficiency applications. This uploads straight from the record side of the AET, whereas if you are using a different way, form of the application, you're gonna have to put that in by hand manually. Once again, for assets, this is, there's not much going on here for me because I was a placement. But if you're an entrepreneurship, you're going to be having a lot more cash flow going in and out. So that all has to go into here.
And just kind of a little tip, just in case any of you do come up with an entrepreneurship, one, your non-current assets. So that's not like, that won't be none of your cash stuff. That's going to be like your machinery, your equipment, things like that. So I know maybe we have a couple buildings that we put on that, and that you'll have to get the formula for that, and you depreciate that for how long you've had it and what you paid for it. So it's confusing. So if you ever do something like that, feel free to come back and talk to one of us.
Yeah, we were always more than willing to help anyone that wants to get their Iowa degree. So if we look at liabilities, once again, for me, it looks pretty bland. This is my Iowa degree application. I didn't have any liabilities because being a placement operation, I didn't own any of it myself, so I just didn't have any. Net worth, this is, so when it comes to net worth, we're just talking about what money did I end up putting in to my proficiency application itself, into my SAE project. This isn't like you don't have to put in your bank accounts or any means. It's talking about how much money you had for your SAE project when you started, how much, it just kind of goes down through the list. You can see that I put in a decent amount of money in the contributed capital. Just once again, it's a lot different when you're doing entrepreneurship, but if you can find this application, it's pretty easy to work with. And if you can't find this application, you have to do it manually. Well, then I would see if you can find a friend or even pull up this video to just kind of look at the different things that you need to be putting into that.
If you do use the AET, it will transfer these data points directly over to your applications. So that does work pretty nice. So that's one helpful thing of AET.
And here is the big thing. So since I wasn't in entrepreneurship SAE, I had to get all of my, so the Iowa degree has requirements based off of how much you invest and how much time you put into it. Since I didn't have the money side of things, I had to count on my hours. So if you look here, it shows the different hours that I put in throughout the course of my 4 years of my SAE project. My total unpaid hours at the time of my application was close to 6,000 hours. And if you scroll down Kabe, it does a little bit of an algorithm in there to kind of just show it has a rate that it believes I should have gotten paid. Like if I would have gotten paid for my SAE project $4 an hour. So that's what this bottom unpaid hours factor is, like the option 3 stuff. So it kind of just goes ahead and make sure here you see under option 2, it says you have to have at least 375 unpaid hours. So, I mean, it's not a lot that you have to put into it, and it's really not too bad.
And I do believe those numbers are staying, if I remember correctly, for the 2021 year. So if you've invested at least $1,500 into your SAE, or if you have 375 hours unpaid, you should meet one of those requirements for that record, or for the Iowa degree.
So I'll explain what's going on this page. So here you see a lot of different like skills and knowledge, skills that transferred over from my proficiency applications. So for example, selling corn was a part of my grain production application, as was seed corn. There's also a few of these in here, like the top one, harvesting the fruit in the correct fashion. That was part of my fruit production. So what the AET does is it uploads it here, and I get to choose which ones I want to select, because I can only have 5 of these on my Iowa degree application. So I went and chose the ones that I thought best represented the amount of growth that I've done through my SAE project to use on my application.
I believe, and don't quote me on this, but I believe it's also 5 for your proficiency award.
Yep. Sounds right. And this looks very familiar right here. This is pulled almost exactly from my proficiency applications. In fact, it's pulled straight from my proficiency applications. I just chose the same areas, and I put in the same wording that I did for my proficiency application off to the side, just to show the different skills and competencies I learned through my SAE project.
And Rachel, I believe you are the one who said you're applying for your Iowa degree this year. So this is, if you want to apply for a proficiency award, just like Carson said, you can directly transfer those over. And that's what I did my junior year. So it really saves you some time, and it's basically 2 awards you get to apply for half the work.
Remind me, did you say you used AET? Yeah. Okay. Awesome. So yeah, you might have some questions later on this too.
All right, so now here we look at the activities side of things. So there's also part of the AET where you put in the different activities that you've been in throughout the course of your high school FFA experience. So we can just look, I went to national convention 4 years in a row in high school. I was an extemporaneous speaker. I was in biotech, state convention. I went 3 years, creed speaking, state choir, ag broadcasting again. That's just looking at, those are the things that I was involved in, because you have to have 5 different FFA activities above the chapter level in order to get your Iowa degree. Here it looks at the amount of community service that I did through high school. This doesn't have to relate to FFA at all, actually. So if you look in 2016, I wrote down that I helped at the county fair with my 4-H club, because that's what I did. I also talked about stuff that I did through my religion classes as community service hours. The American Legion in 2017, I added in there. And if you look at these community service, it has nothing to do with my FFA experience, but it met the requirement check. All that matters is that you have community service hours to put in, and some way that you can get it in. It doesn't matter where you get them, just as long as you write what you did and what group you were doing it with.
Yep.
And as you can see at the bottom, you have to have at least 25 hours of community service, and it has to be from at least 2 different activities. I'd also like to point out a question from Morgan as well in the chat. And when can we get the Iowa degree? And to get your Iowa degree, you at least need to hold the chapter degree currently. So best case scenario, you'll be a junior right now, and you can apply for this award. And then you can also apply for it up till, I want to say it's your 4th national convention out of high school is when you officially stop becoming an FFA member. So you have a long time. It's just the sooner the better if you're planning on getting your American degree as well.
Mm-hmm.
Or if you plan on running for state office, you have to have the Iowa degree in order if you plan on running for state office in the future.
Okay, so and lastly is the checklist like we talked about
Mhm.
on the Proficiency Awards. So we'll go ahead, we'll go ahead and go back to the slideshow here. Proficiency Awards. So I guess we can all kind of go around and just talk about like our proficiency. I don't like, have you applied for Proficiency Awards?
Mhm.
Yeah, so we can kind of go around and talk about them. I guess I can start. So my first year, I didn't mention this, but I was, I guess I did a goat placement, and I was runner up, but that was not my cup of tea. So I am strictly on the swine production entrepreneurship side now. So I did that 2 years ago and last year. 2 years ago, I was runner up. Last year, I won that, and then yeah, that's it.
All right. So my sophomore year, when I put in my first application, I was the state runner up in grain production. And so I took another year to work on that. I put in some more hours and I kind of revamped my application a little bit. And that year, in my junior year, I won the state proficiency for placement grain production. And then last year, I put in my application for fruit production, where I got first in the state for that as well.
And then lastly, for me, I know I already talked about what my areas were, but one thing I'd like to point out that I learned the hard way in my first year applying for Proficiency Awards is that that category and that 47 different areas we talked about earlier are really important. I ended up applying for Ag Ed my first year, and it was really an Ag Communications Proficiency Award. So I ended up making it to the state level, but ended up only getting a silver. And then I turned around the next year, ended up getting third in the state. So that area that you pick is really important, and a really good resource is to ask your advisor or a mentor that you might have in your FFA chapter, and they can really make sure that your record book really applies to that area.
Yeah, definitely. Oops, sorry. Is there any questions like on Proficiency Awards that you guys have? And like I said, feel free to speak up. We're not too mean. No question's a dumb question. Is there anything else you guys have on that?
Not on proficiencies.
Not on
That's
proficiency.
good.
Okay, so we can move on to Iowa degrees. I know we have a couple that are interested in getting their Iowa degrees. We kind of went over the application a little bit. I guess the other thing on Iowa degrees is just making sure that your records are up to keep. I was really bad at keeping my records up, so I had to go back and type in numbers. So just making sure that that's up to keep is one of the main points that I have.
Yeah, and when they look at your Iowa degree, you have to print off your entire record book. So they kind of look at when you put in these different hours and stuff. So I was pretty bad about it too. I know they want you to put it in every day, and if you can do that, that's great. But otherwise, making sure that you at least have one submission for every month is always something that I made sure I did, and it seemed to work out pretty well.
I don't think I have anything personally much to add besides what they already said. I know one great resource for when I applied for my Iowa degree and that your actual advisors will be using when you guys apply is on that resources section on the Iowa FFA website, which it should also be there on the new website as well in the same location, is it will actually have a list of all the checklists you have to meet that an advisor will run through before they actually accept your Iowa degree. And I believe it's called district review. And if you actually look at that application, you can just make sure that you meet all those requirements. And then when you send your Iowa degree off, you shouldn't have any single problems.
And basically, if it says that you met all the requirements on your AET, you should be okay. But like Blake said, on district review night, they'll have advisors that go over those. So if there is something that you're missing, it's not like you won't get your Iowa degree. They'll say, "Hey, will you fix this?" And then you'll bring it to another review, and then they should okay it there if you get that fixed. Stars over Iowa. So, did you ever do this, Blake?
I applied.
You applied. So we all three have applied for this. It's something I'll kind of give a little background on it, and then maybe we can talk about what ours was and how we did it. So Stars over Iowa is something that you have to apply for the same year that you're getting your state degree. So that's a little confusing, but so me personally, I waited a year to get my Iowa degree just so that my stars over Iowa records would build up a little bit. I guess that's maybe one little tip that I have for you is to maybe, if you can, wait a year. If you do want to run for stars over Iowa, you know, it's where they give you the cool wooden plaques with your face engraved in on them. Yeah, so those are pretty cool if you're a finalist there. But I'll go ahead and explain my star over Iowa and then let those. But basically what it is it's your proficiency award. So mine was under the business. So there's 6 areas. Is that right?
I believe so.
6 areas. And so I did mine under the business or the entrepreneurship area topic. And basically it's not only going to be against different swine production entrepreneurship people, it's going to be against all the entrepreneurship people. So it'll be against goat production entrepreneurship or maybe even bee entrepreneurship if you own bees or something. So it'll be against all of those. And then they submit all the applications. The finalist will then go to state convention and do like an interview. And then all 7 finalists, I believe it's 7. Is it 7? 6.
It would be 6 for all the 6.
6, 1 from each district, correct. Excuse me there, I messed that up. But you just do your interview and then you'll go on stage and then that's when they pick.
Yep. And you were a finalist, were you not, Kabe?
Yep, I was.
So I also applied for the Star Over Iowa award, and I, just like Kabe, I actually waited a year to get my Iowa degree, so I had a little bit more hours put into that. And I was also a finalist, but I was in the I was in the placement area. Thanks, Kabe. And I was pretty much the same thing Kabe said. You're against all the other placement people in the state, or at least in your district to start with, and then the state. Making sure that you have, for that, you definitely want to make sure you have up-to-date record books, whether your expenses for entrepreneurship or your hours for placement, and making sure that you have it all filled out to the best of your ability. Try to use up every space that they give you without going over the limits for your word count. That's the biggest thing that I would have to recommend for that.
Just adding on to what both of them said, the application for this one is actually mainly based off your Iowa degree. The only addition to it is it's mainly like just a little sub essay of just kind of saying why you would be deserving of this award. And one really awesome tip that I have for whether you're applying for your proficiency award, a Star Over Iowa degree application, is there's actually what Kabe mentioned earlier, there's a district review night, as well as I believe almost all the districts host a pre-review night that you can attend. And at these, there will be a bunch of advisors where they'll look at applications and they can decide if it's good or if it needs some work. And one thing that my chapter has really enjoyed doing is we actually attend pre-review night normally and make sure our applications are done by that time, because if they decide that you need more work for that, you have district review, and in extreme cases, you can also have one chance after that to make sure your application is perfect, and you can still have that chance to send it to the state level as well.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, definitely awesome explanation there, Blake. But other than that, is there any questions on the Stars Over Iowa? And we'll leave some time for questions at the end too if you forget. But Trey, did you unmute?
Yeah, I missed what you said earlier about possibly waiting a year. Could you restate that?
Yeah, so basically what I did when I knew I wanted to run for like the Stars Over Iowa. So I waited a year to get my Iowa degree because like I mentioned earlier, you have to apply for a star the same year that you're getting your Iowa degree. So I just waited a year to get my Iowa degree. Instead of getting it my junior year, I got it my senior year. So then I built up some records and.
Yep, and I did the same thing. I also waited from my junior year to my senior year so that I could have a little bit more hours put into it, so I had a better chance maybe.
Mm-hmm. Does that kind of explain it better? Perfect. And like I said, yeah, we'll have some time for questions at the end too. Oh,
Which is
speaking of it, which is now. So we'll just leave it open to questions across the whole presentation or general questions. It doesn't have to be about proficiency. If you have just some general questions even. Did you have any questions? Oh, sorry.
No, you're good. I kind of have a quick question about the stars award. Is it like really competitive to get like on stage for that? Because I mean, I know my chapter started like my sophomore year, so I don't have that many, like I feel like I don't have as many hours as most people would. Like, was there, I don't know, is it really competitive to be good at it?
I think it's definitely something that's competitive. I know, I guess all around we're pretty competitive in the state of Iowa, so that we are fortunate for that. However, you don't necessarily have to have a ton of hours to apply for this. Making sure that your essay is wrote up pretty good is a main thing. Just making sure that you have a general idea of what you're doing, and that you've dug deep and done research in it, and really shown your true passion for it is kind of the main thing. I mean, if it's something that you want to apply for, I definitely wouldn't hesitate not applying just because you don't have as many hours.
And even if you don't have all the hours, making sure that your record book's up to date is a huge thing. Like if you have your record book filled out good, it shouldn't matter quite as much on the hours aspect of things.
Yeah, definitely.
Adding just a little piece onto that, I know I said it a little bit earlier. For all of these applications, one thing to really hit hard on is like grammar. I know it sounds really simple, but if you leave a period out here, a period out there, a misspelled word, it can slowly build up throughout that application. And I know that a lot of judges sometimes, everyone's so good, like Kabe said, it's very competitive, that sometimes they won't even know who to choose, but the first thing that they look for is grammar, because if you're not willing to put in the time to check through your essay, chances are you probably aren't the best qualified person for that. So if you do that, chances are you have a really good shot as well.
And well, sorry, go ahead.
Sorry. On that note, when you're filling out any of these applications, if you're using the AET, it doesn't spell check for you. So what I always do is I take and I copy and paste into like Google Drive or something that's going to spell check for me to make sure that I don't have any mistakes in there. And I would recommend that very much.
Also, one other tip, just have other people look over it. It doesn't hurt to have an extra set of eyes on it. Your English teacher, I mean, anybody, your principal, anybody would be better than nobody, especially your advisor. I know that my advisor helped me quite a bit.
With that, we'll move on to our next question. Gina in the question put, have any of you guys applied for your American degree? I know that I'm applying this year.
Morgan, I see you're going to head out. Thank you for getting on. We appreciate it. If you have any other questions, feel free to contact us anytime. I'll put our things here in case you want to take a picture of that if you want to contact us. Go ahead, Blake.
I was just adding that I'm personally applying for my American degree this year. The one stipulation on the American degree, I know that we're not talking about that, so I won't get in too much, is that you actually have to be 1 year out of high school. So technically you can't apply your freshman year. You'd have to wait till your sophomore year.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. So like I mentioned, I am a sophomore at Iowa State. So I am 1 year out of high school. I could have applied this year. However, I wanted to build up my records again for the same fact for an award. Kind of like how I waited on my for the Star Award. I'm going to do the same thing, but on the national side of things. So I personally waited, but it's kind of a personal preference. Is there any more questions that you guys might have?
I know Morgan headed out, but there is one thing I'd like to point out for people who are watching this, the recording or just watching it live, even if you have the AET. So Kabe, do you want to pull up Google, and then we'll go to the National FFA website really quick. So when you pull up the National FFA website, there's another way to access your applications. So if you go up to the top and then you click the dashboard, it'll give you the opportunity to log in if you click on student members. And right under there, it says FFA, Application Center at the very bottom. So you have to make sure that your account is already logged in on ffa.org. But then already here, you can see the list of applications from local and state, which is where you'd find that Iowa degree, your Stars Over Iowa, Proficiency Awards. There's also SAE grants, American degree, a lot of other stuff that you can also apply for as well through this center on National FFA's website.
Yeah, it's not gonna let me sign into this either. I would have showed you, but apparently I don't know my username and passwords. But yeah, if you guys don't have any more questions, just kidding. Do you think waiting a year to apply for your Iowa degree may look bad on an application, for example, district office? You know, I personally don't think that it would. If they have a question on that, then that's something that they would probably ask you if they want to clarify it. Other than that, I don't think they would look too deep on that or as to why. I know when I was a district officer, I did not have my Iowa degree yet. So if that explains anything.
And a clarification on that as well. You actually can't be a district officer and have your Iowa degree. You would technically be already elected, or you would not have the chance to run for district office again with that. But I do agree with Kabe on that. I don't think it's much of a big deal to anyone if you decide to wait a year. It's more just a personal preference. And then some chapters also prefer to wait a year versus doing it right away.
Mm-hmm. Definitely. Is there any more questions? Well, we want to thank you guys for jumping on here. Sorry for getting on a little late. We were having some technical difficulties, but like I said, if you have any questions, feel free to take a picture of our information. It's also on the Iowa FFA's page, and so you should be able to contact us anytime. Blake had one more thing here.
And then with that quick, if you guys would all be willing to turn on your cameras for the Iowa FFA social media, we'll pull up, we'll actually stop sharing our screen quick, and then we'll actually take a screenshot of it if you guys are all willing to turn on your cameras, and we'll use that for our Iowa FFA social media about our helpful hour as well. Okay, so I'm just gonna count down on the count of 3 to screenshot it for Mia and I. So 1, 2, 3. Okay, perfect. Thank you very much again, guys, for attending. We hope this was helpful for you. We will also have the recording for this as well. So if anyone from your chapter or another chapter you know wants to see this, feel free to share that with them when it comes out as well.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. Thank you.
Yeah,
Thank you guys.
Thank you.